bienvenue, welcome once again to arguably our most watched show, which is Cladding Matters. And there are good reasons for that. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us. This is a place where we discuss, once again, more topics related to building safety, fire safety, and everything in between, and perhaps point a finger and shine a spotlight on areas that need to be looked at, and perhaps create more discussion points because of it. This podcast, along with four others, was commissioned and put together really with myself, Hamish McLean, and various attendees, of which Steve Day is one of our most fabulous and more apposite, because he is himself locked into Royal Artillery Keys because of the cladding scandal. But Hamish McLean, since you helped start us up, why don't you start us off today, sir?
Well, whatever we seem to do, whatever steps we attempt to sort of make to improve aspects, because at the end of the day, we're trying to see what can be done and look at the positive side. What can we do to get things right for people caught up in the situation that Steve's caught up in, and these millions of other people caught up in the sort of UK? Now, one of the major issues or the major aspects of what our government came in to do 18 months ago now was to actually do something dramatic about the housing industry. And it actually has. It's screwed up the whole thing up, in fairness. But part of that should have been an element of remediation as well as build. Now, the big challenge is they've fallen completely flat on their faces in terms of the build, but there haven't been any real focus on the remediation side. So there are still a lot of people, I say still, there are millions of people caught up. They know the building to be unsafe. And we're finding, as we did a couple of weeks ago with Matt, when Matt came along and explained the figures to him, Matt Hodges Long, we're getting more and more people, because they're finding more and more buildings which are unsafe, they're having to move people out of. But the situation is, unless this government actually acts and does something about pulling remediation forward, they've kicked it down the road. But the other aspect is what we're looking to achieve at the same time as this remediation bill actually hitting the right spots. Alongside of that, we've got to get the understanding that something like PAS 9980, which is a totally irrelevant standard and needs to be replaced by something completely different, that needs to be re-articulated, and the whole process needs to be speeded up. But nothing sort of seems to be happening. It just gets pushed further and further back. And I don't recollect any major issues being made about housing. We go through, don't we, weeks and weeks and weeks with the government saying they're doing this is happening, look at the bill. Now, there's nothing positive they can say. So nothing is being released by the government. But Steve, in the background, will actually sort of see more of what is not happening. And I think this is important. It's not so much what is happening, it's what is not happening. That's the key at the moment.
Steve, welcome once again to Cladding Matters. We've just been joined by a load of people, so let's just make it plain. Today, we're talking about the fact that remediation is just not on course at the moment. Delayed, and residents are still waiting for action. Can you give us an update on that? And perhaps we could talk about some of the reasons why you think that is.
Yeah, so basically it happened over the last couple of weeks, since our last week actually, since our last session on Cladding Matters, and it's been pushed back, the remediation bill, indefinitely. And just for the viewers to remember, the remediation bill caused controversy because it was trying to make the watered down, dangerous PAS 9980 remediation guidance and not standard. It isn't actually a standard law, so that there's no way for us to go via the courts to get a full remediation, which is what they want to stop. Now, hot off the press, within 3 hours of now, the Construction News has just put out an article called PAS 9980, Is Mandation of the Fire Standard a Bad Idea? Which is very interesting. And they mentioned the Christmas Eve article that we worked on with the BBC, basically, and they quote, allowing developers to game the system. And the BSI have done a big statement on PAS 9980. It's just 3 hours ago.
Wow.
And it says the outcome of FRAS is intended to inform risk assessments of multi-story. It applies predominantly to multi-story blocks of flats, blah, blah, blah. They don't really say anything about the controversy by the looks of it. But what they do is quote Stephanie Barwise, who was that lawyer, and hopefully we'll be able to get her on at some point.
It would be lovely if we could.
And she says, Barwise, who represented victims of the Grenfell Tower fire in the public inquiry, said that the PAS methodology could accept combustible materials on properties with a stay put policy, cladding systems that have not been adequately tested for fire performance and fire spread to multiple floors within half an hour. So she's basically saying that this stuff can stay on. And also from the Institute of Construction Management, David Jones, who featured in that BBC piece, says there's too much onus on the competence of the fire risk assessors who are sitting there, you know, making the decision either to make the developers really quite liable or not and save them a load of money. And he says, this is crystal ball stuff. This is the assessment of the buildings and the risk. It's not based on any science at all, he told Construction News. Even properly done from almost the same sort of cladding specification that was on Grenfell could be tolerably allowed. He's saying, yeah, you can leave the Grenfell cladding on the building, call it tolerable. And also, remember, the standard itself has said if you can't find a proportionate stroke cheap way to fix the problem, then mark it as done and don't worry about it. Just say it's done. Tolerable. You don't have to fix it. If you can't find a cheap way to fix it, then don't fix it at all.
I've often said that how many lives is acceptable to lose? You see, I thought naively, Hamish, that we have the policy should be that no life is worth losing. Yet they seem to be, with this tolerable assessment, be almost opining that it's quite fine to lose X number of lives because it was tolerable.
It comes to me that we've got a societal shift, and the government are guilty of it. Councils are seriously guilty of it. We can actually sort of see what the council are doing relative to Steve's predicament, and what they actually sort of do. Everything, I guess, is not in a capitalist sort of way, because capitalism does work effectively. The trouble is when so much money is demanded by so many people and certain profits are required by stakeholders, we have sort of situations. So people are looking at the consequence of everything happening, what's going to happen to the stakeholders. And from that particular aspect, when you look at it, where the big builders are, if they aren't held responsible, if they don't sort of have to pay for this thing, obviously they've got more money to actually develop sort of further buildings. So the government and all these other people are looking at purely from a profit aspect. The person that is going to suffer from it, the people that have died already in fires, the people that have died from mental strain, the people suffering mentally, their mindsets are completely blown because of what's going up. People like young Amanda, taking their own lives to escape from something they couldn't possibly understand what the hell was going to happen.
Unbelievable.
We are looking at the wrong thing. We are not looking at the people. We aren't. That is the side of, we need to look at the people involved in this, not the big boys. They are the ones that should be resolving it. They are the ones that should be jumping in there and saying, right, this is what we can do. And somehow or other, we've got to get that shift and that responsibility put on them, rather than ignoring the people that are caught up in this whole scandal. Same old thing. it's the rich. I'm sure there was some, you know, it's the rich, it's the poor that get the blame and the rich that get the money. And that's what they're trying to do at this particular moment in time. They're trying to resolve financial issues. There will be a financial resolve if they investigate it, but at the moment, they're trying to find a way of escaping responsibility.
Steve, are they burying it in the idea of kicking it all into the long grass, and that we never actually have to have a positive resolution for the terrible tragedy that happened at Grenfell?
Well, you mentioned Grenfell, and this is the key. So Grenfell happened. 72 people lost their lives. We also know that the defect rates, you know, there's egregious defect rates I keep banging on about, you know, up to 77% for Taylor Wimpey,
yes.
35% for Barrett, and so on. So they knew two facts. I mean, they might not have known the defect rates in that detail, but they probably did know that these builders were cutting corners from evidence that comes out from time to time. What do? You've got a massive liability that could be found out after a massive fire that is going to push all the spotlight onto the construction industry, who have got skeletons in their closet and they can't exactly hide them because the buildings are all over the country. Right. What do? Well, you bring in people that can help manage the liability, and you do legislative changes that look like the problem is solved when really you're burying it. And that's basically what we've done. So the government has done two very clever things, and I would say it's clever because a lot of people think the crisis has been solved, not perfectly but largely resolved. The genius of it was you say, yeah, we're going to make all the big developers pay to fix buildings for the last 30 years. Then you water down what they have to do. So when the big headlines out there, well, you know, aren't the developers fixing buildings now? The government can say, of course they are. Don't know what day is going on about. They're leaving the stuff on. And
they're leaving the stuff on. It's just, but we've been talking about them leaving stuff on since the get-go, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of improvement in that fact.
Well, what's great is the professional indemnity insurers have spoke out this week about it all. So not only have we got, you know, 3 hours ago, is PAS 1990 a good idea? It's being raised now in construction news, which is great. Listen to this. So they've talked about the delay in the remediation bill. So ultimately, the public insurance providers, professional indemnity market, they say ultimately the delay in the remediation bill reinforces insurers' conservative underwriting stance, sustaining higher premiums, restrictive terms, and limiting the appetite for cladding and fire safety related risks across architects, engineers, and construction firms. Professional indemnity insurers rely on certainty as to the long-term responsibility for building defects, and ultimately, you know, continued, and this is their words, continued ambiguity complicates insurers' ability to model exposure. And, you know, this is real problems. At Royal Artillery Quays, our service charges are north of £6,000, and a large amount of it is insurance. The insurers are pricing in risk of the defects they're leaving on, because they know that now.
They're not stupid. They're not stupid. They don't want to be left with egg on their face. That's because,
But also, as per this, the insurers are also pricing in the uncertainty of the legislative landscape that the government's creating. So we're not only paying for the defects staying on at the PAS, we're paying now for the political handling of delaying the remediation bill, because nobody knows what's coming. And this is real people paying. And that's the issue that we have. We've got real people sort of all over the place paying huge insurance premiums. And to give you one of the very shocking things, as I'm the residence chair of 1,000 people, one of the my neighbours couldn't maintain their adopted baby, couldn't maintain the cost of that, and had to hand it back. So these are real issues. This money that's going out on service charges is unbelievably corrupt, because it's paying for defects caused by an industry that is lasting in our place.
Dreadfully sad. Dreadfully sad.
Yeah, and some people are taking loans, 20 grand in debt loans because they can't pay the 6,000 every year that's being required of them. So they put it on the loan and pay off 1,000. But the loan, if you're only paying 1,000, you get 6,000 every year, then it's going to go one way up, and your debt gets worse and worse. These people are not wealthy. Woolwich is not the place of the wealthy. It's changing, but it isn't at rack. There are people at the end of their tether, and we've had people that have gone to hospital due to stress, and ultimately not getting any better. And we need to stand firm against this. And I think there's a wider issue in society, as Hamish says. This is destroying trust in democracy. This is playing in. If I was a outside player and I wanted to use policy to destroy the UK's trust in politicians, in the system, then this is exactly the kind of thing I would do. I'd encourage policy that actually creates chaos and destroys the hope and dreams of 5 million people, which is what's happened. Right. And I do wonder how, I don't know if there's any proof of that, but there is that seriously a benefit to those that want to destroy trust in our democracy. And it makes us wide open to, all the problems of not trusting the democratic institutions has on a society, including all the ugly stuff that could happen. And if we can't say that an unlawfully constructed building needs to be fixed by the perpetrators without going through the courts, if we really can't say that, we can't say our laws matter then, can we? Because the law said that was illegal. What laws are okay to listen to? Maybe I'll say actually
it does seem a bit like picking and choosing which part of the welfare state you want to abide by, which part of the legal system you want to adhere to. It all seems very...
But only for the big boys, only for the big guys, not for us. So they get to choose, they get to lobby, they get to say, well, actually, we want the government, even though we've broken the law technically, we want you to, A, don't put us in prison, B, don't put the liability all on us, and C, shut down all campaigns in every way you can that are seeking us to do the right thing. And we've seen all of that, as you've been a witness to, both at the local and global level. Parliamentary level, and but we're still here and we're not going away. And I'm
afraid I'm gonna round this up on a positive note. At least we do still have, and I have to say, one thing I will champion Britain for: we're allowed to at least talk and shout loudly and point out when the Emperor has no clothes on. Hamish, would you care to please take us home? You're on mute at the moment, sir.
Yes, with having some difficulty unmuting myself, which is rare for me because it's hard to stop me once I get going, but I will slow it down. I think, what Steve has actually put when he's speaking about the background, we look at Grenfell and nobody's been held up as having been responsible for Grenfell. But even before, long before that fire came out, the residents were complaining to the council. The council ignored the residents. Fire. Then we had the fire. 72 residents died, and somehow or other, the council is yet still not held responsible. Now, what people need to do, this is one of the big things. What we need to do now is people need to speak, and the only way you can actually sort of speak. A very interesting thing, particularly with Royal Artillery Quays. We've got an opportunity there. If we get the right council members in there, the Labour council members are useless. They've demonstrated this. They have been complained to time after time after time and taken no action. And it's the same throughout the United Kingdom, or England and Wales particularly. We need to get on our feet and walk down to the poll station and actually vote for the people who are going to get the action to get something like this remediation bill sorted out to an appropriate standard that is safe. And really, that's the only way we can speak at the moment. Follow what Steve's doing, join in that campaign, the building safety scheme.org, get involved with that and follow this campaign and really speak by your votes, because you've got in a couple of months' time, you can vote away and get something actually happening. But sad to say, we are still we are under the weight of those that want to make money from the, if you like, those of us who don't have it.
Well, there you go. I mean, the positive I take from this is that Steve and his team are still pushing forward, and you know, as soon as enough people in the right places see the relevances, I'm certain it will push through. But to all of you out there, I'd say keep watching. We've got some excellent shows coming up next week. Remember, on Tuesdays we've got Property Matters. Wednesdays we've got Ipsy Kind of Magic. Thursdays Property Quorum, and Friday, of course, Cladding Matters. If you really want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the property market, then you could do a lot worse than watching these podcasts. Until next week, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please, in these troubled times, look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.